we are, just so you guys are aware, the professor wanted us to take videos so that the next students can watch the videos. Okay?
I think we should go.
Alright, well, we're going to start with the personal protection equipment, also known as PPEs. And the first thing is the safety goggles. So the safety goggles are required anytime you enter the lab. So even if you come inside the lab for 1 minute, I know some people want just to come inside and look at the GC data and go outside. If you notice, for example, in this laboratory, there are probably 10 people working. You don't know what other people is doing, and anytime someone can come in with chemicals or things like this. So it's always good prevention. So that's why the safety goggles are always required inside the lab. And we have different kinds. We have this one, which is if you don't wear any prescription glasses, then this one may be suitable for you, and it has kind of shields on the side, so it helps you protect. We have also this kind. These you can find at the chem store, same as the ones that I'm wearing. So these one are called like visitor goggles, and they're easy because you can put on top of prescription glasses. And we have some more, I guess, more advanced. So these you can order from different websites like Paul Farmer or Ranger. And these ones are the so-called goggles. And as you can see, this one offer better protection if you feel comfortable enough with these ones. And these ones as well, they're to wear on top of prescription glasses. So remember, always, no matter how long you're gonna be inside the lab, wear the safety goggles. The next thing we're gonna talk about is gloves. So a lot of us, we work with chemicals, solid or liquids, and we use gloves to protect our hands. So we have here 3 different kind of gloves, which are not the only kinds, but are the most commonly used. And something important to know is what the gloves are good for. So if you go to the website, so this is Kimberly Clark, this is Microflex, and this one is Neotouch from Ansel. You can have a compatibility guide. So in this guide, it's going to tell you what the gloves are good for. And so please make sure that when you know which chemicals you're going to work with, you go and you can check here which gloves are good for what. We use here acetone a lot, and acetone is not a toxic chemical. However, we want to avoid the contact with acetone and with any chemical because we want to protect our hands. So neither of these gloves are good for acetone. When you go to the website, it shows there is like a time, like the time that it takes for the liquid to go through the glove, and these two are not recommended for acetone. This one is still not recommended, but the protection barrier is better than these two. So if you are working with acetone, I will recommend that you use this. Now, because we work with many chemicals, one single glove doesn't protect from all chemicals. So some practice that we have is that we use double gloves. So usually I use one of these and one of these. For example, this one protects me for phenol, which is a solid. So I work with phenol, so I use this one, and this one gives some decent protection for phenolics, for acetone. So I combine these two when I work. But always make sure you go and check whether the gloves will protect you from the chemicals you're using. Now the third thing is masks. So when we work with the organics or even with solids that have strong smells, for protection we can use a mask. Now the first thing that we need to take into account, Felipe is going to talk about that later, is if you are working with any organic, always work in a ventilated area. Always work in the hood because that's the best protection for us. There exists this kind of respirator that you can use to protect from organic vapors. However, in order to use this, you need to go through a special training. You need to have the mask, you need to have a test for the mask to make sure that it is covering all the surface, because if not, you are just concentrating the vapors inside and they're able to enter and it's not protecting you. So we have talked to the safety department in the university, and they say if you are going to use this, you need to talk to them and go through the training that they provide. So we try to avoid having to use this by working in the ventilated areas with the organics. There is, for powders, there is this mask which has a P95 filter, and this is what is required for lab safety. And this mask we have some in D102, and you can also order from Ranger or Palmer if you run out of them. And there is actually one mask like this that also has a filter for organic vapors. And this mask does not require a fitting test. So even though you're working in the ventilated area and you want to have some extra protection, you can get a mask like this, but make sure that it has a filter for organic vapors. And finally, you will see that in some labs we have this kind of mask. Truly, this mask does not protect from the powders nor from the chemicals. So when you are using this mask, basically this doesn't work for any of the things that we do here. So I would recommend that you do not use this mask thinking that it's going to protect you from powders or from the chemicals. If you need to work with powders, use this one. If you need to work with volatiles, always in ventilated areas. Lab coats also, the rule in our labs, and this is not for all the labs in the university, the university recommends when necessary to use lab coat. However, the professors have established that in our research group labs, the lab coat is required, same as the goggles. Even if you are going to enter for 1 minute to the lab, please wear the lab coat. We have some additional lab coats in the lab, so if you don't have yours, you can wear one of the lab coats that are at the entrance. And again, if you enter in this lab, someone is working with a chemical, they can easily spill something in you. Even if you enter 2 seconds, that's how much is required for them to spill something in you. So always think about your protection and for the protection of the baby. Also, as I mentioned before, you keep everything that belongs to the lab in the lab, and then keep your offices clean, because that's the space where you work, and the computer where people is handing out with no protection equipment. So you want to keep the chemicals and everything in the lab. Of course, during the summer, people is going to be wearing flip-flops outside, inside the lab. No open-toe shoes, no flip-flops, no sandals. Always closed shoes for working in the lab. Shorts are allowed in the lab. However, personally, I prefer not to wear shorts because there is always the risk that something can spill and then it goes into your leg. So that is not a rule, but my recommendation is do not wear shorts when you come to the lab in the sun. And finally, for the ladies, we have all of you are not going to be working with power reactors, but the power reactors, they have a steering, they have a rotor, they have an engine. So use not only that, when you're working with chemicals, if you have a vessel with chemicals, you can lay like this and your hair can easily go, either get tangled in the rotor of the reactor or get in touch with the chemicals. So always just tie your hair, that's for safety. When you go outside, then you can lose it, it's okay, but just when you are inside the lab, just make sure that your hair is put together. That's it for this.